Legend and Beauts favorite Pat Micheletti joins to break down the early Wild offseason movement, and what does Blaine and Husky legend Matt Hendricks think about it? Episode 40 starts now.
Masks, hats, tees, and hoodies, SodaStick is constantly bringing you new and original swag. Whether you want to rep the Minnesota Vikings with the Bud Grant crew neck, or let folks know you're from the state of hockey with the McGolden Light Pond Hockey Club gear, SodaStick has you covered. Toss down that Bardown Beauties code at checkout for free shipping on all purchases at sodastick.com, official presenting sponsor of the Bardown Beauties podcast. Hello, everybody. Episode 40, presented by sodastick.com. Joining us in honor of our 40th episode, our very favorite honorary Beaut, Pat Micheletti. Mick
I'm
the
going to
host.
cry.
What's up?
I'm going to cry.
That's going to make you
Is this
tear
my
up your...
third? Is this number 3 for me?
No, it's 4. I think
It's 4.
Is it really?
Yeah. You're special. You're a
you're,
favorite.
you're at the
I'm
top of the
honored.
list
I
for
feel
returning
honored.
guests.
I feel honored.
Well, I
Great
mean,
to
you're a
see you
legend.
guys
We're
again.
honored.
Great to see you guys again.
Good
You
to
too,
see
Pat.
Good to see you. Obviously, we brought Pat on board to talk about some things happening. Pat, the Wild are
Wow.
making moves. I mean, we knew it might be kind of a crazy offseason. Let's start with the Eric Staal trade to Buffalo in exchange for Marcus Johansson, a 1-for-1. I, for one, was a little shocked, especially with them extending Staal and a center and a veteran and a well-liked guy in the locker room who had seemed to be doing okay. I think he also ignited a lot of the youth around him as well. To send him to Buffalo for Marcus Johansson, not sure if that was, the right move. What are your thoughts behind it and what maybe Bill Guerin might have been thinking?
Well, I think, before I get into Eric and his career and stuff, I think as fans, as analysts, as, our favorite team, all of those things, I think we get caught up sometimes in players. Okay. Now I love Eric Staal as a person, as a player, his career. And everything you want to say about him is A+, right? But in reality, when you're looking at this team and you see the other teams in the league, and we know this team, right? We know they're a little older. We know that they need to get younger. We know that they need to get more skill. We know that they need to get faster. And so that being said, putting our love for the guy aside, if you're asking me if I'm making that move, in a heartbeat, because they got younger, they got faster, they got more skill, and that is the direction of, I think, where this team needs to go. I mean, just look no further than the Van Canucks, and look no further than their top 6, and the speed and the skill that they possess, right? And then you look at Minnesota's top 6, and there's one guy in that top 6 right now. Okay, take Kaprizov aside, right? That you'd really put in your top 6, in my opinion. And so I really think it's a much needed move, but I think this is just the beginning of what's going to happen in the next month or two.
Do you think Marcus Johansson, I mean, Bill Guerin told media the other day that he does believe Marcus is a top 6. I know he struggled in Buffalo, but
Yep.
He looked phenomenal in Washington. I mean, of course, when you're around those guys and the elite talent that the Capitals have, that can be different. But do you believe that Johansson is, in fact, a top 6 forward?
Don't forget what he did in Boston when he got traded from New Jersey at the deadline.
See, this is why we have you on. I would have forgotten all about that.
Yeah, 2 years ago. He was fantastic for him. And, the big question and the big talk is he a center or a left wing? People don't think he can play center. For me right now, I don't care, because I think he's a top 6 guy. I don't think Billy Guerin is done. I don't think it's a sure thing that he's going to be in the middle. But you know what? he's a good enough player to do that, to be able to do that. But so I'm not getting too hung up on center, left wing. I'm looking at getting better talent because this team is saddled with bottom six forwards. Cunnin, Greenway, Eck. Those guys, in my opinion, are not top six forwards. I haven't seen enough. And we got in this problem a couple years back when Chuck Fletcher thought his core group was going to be Zucker, Coyle, and Niederreiter. Okay. And that didn't pan out to anything, getting to a Western Conference final or a Stanley Cup final. Mm-hmm. Did they hold on to him too long? Did they wait too long for them to mature? You can debate that until you're blue in the face. But
well, again, it goes back to those were fan guys, right? Like that was really what upset people. I think people still forgot the talent.
Yeah, everybody loves them. They're all great people. They all did great stuff in the community, and you become attached to them, right? Mm-hmm. But you have to do what's best for your team. And I think Bill Guerin and their whole staff is watching these playoffs, and they're seeing what they're seeing, and they realize what they have. Not that Minnesota is that far away, but they know they need to get better in their top six. There's no doubt about it.
Well, what do you think about, I know that Guerin said, I think it was in response to the Staal trade, that something to the effect of, if you don't make moves, like nothing's going to happen. And I think that right. The Wild fans and Wild media and all of us who follow this team haven't really seen a GM say something like that or do. I mean, we know right. Billy G is very transparent. We've gotten that, we figured that out just the time he's been here. But I think there was something that was comforting about knowing that he's willing to do whatever he needs to do, even if he's not going after, those big name guys, or you see a trade like this and you're like, was this really the right move? It's like he's got something else in his mind going on that he knows that this is all part of a bigger picture. And I think that's new to a lot of people in Minnesota here. What do you think about that?
And he's been consistent in that message too, which I love. He said
I'll
that
tell you one thing. And the two of you and myself are all guilty of hyping, right? Mm-hmm. We all, this is a year. This is a year. We have player X, we have player Y, we have player Z, but they were all back. They were all here the year before and the year before, but we still get that hope and that enthusiasm. And this is the year that they're going to do it. Well, I think Billy Guerin, like you said, Alexis, has come out and said, you know what? We're not good enough.
Yeah.
We just aren't. And guess what? You're going to see the same thing if I don't make changes. And and I applaud him for what, who knows what trade is going to work out or what have you. But if you don't try to mix things up a little bit, then you are going to be status quo forever and ever and ever.
Mm-hmm. Well, and like I said, I mean, I feel here in Minnesota, especially, we're happy enough to make the playoffs. It's every time we talk about it, it's like, hey, we're going to make the playoffs. It's like, no, I want the attitude that says, hey, we're going to go win a Stanley Cup. You don't hear that mantra enough, right? It's just kind of like, do you want to make the playoffs and be bounced in the first round, or do you want to actually have a real go at it? And again, I think Minnesota fans especially forget that takes time, that takes movement, that takes change. And I know that can be hard to accept, but it's got to happen. I think, again, that quote that Billy had said was so spot on the money. He's like, if we don't change, we're the same. And that's not the idea. That's not why you brought them in. Pat, how much do you think that Judd Brackett has had to do in the movement of the team? I mean, he's a phenomenal hockey mind who obviously sees a lot now, head of scouting. How much do you think he's in Billy's ear saying, hey, let's do this, this, and this to make some of these big moves?
Well, it's always good to get a new voice. And here's what I'm seeing from, I'm an outsider looking at your team. I was with, another team and other teams, and I see how they do things. Without a doubt, I think, because Bill Guerin doesn't want someone to come in and say, yeah, I agree with you, Bill. I agree. He wants a different perspective, and that makes him think, and that makes him, get other ideas in his head. And, I think that's great. I really do. And, I look at, he's trying to fix things that need fixing. And it wouldn't shock me if his next move is not a move for a goaltender. If he really believes, like he has told all of us, that the goaltending has got to get better, that he wasn't happy with the goaltending, well, then guess what? He's going to go out and try to fix that. And if he can, he's not going to put a Band-Aid on it. He's not going to give Kähkönen the job just because he had a great year in the American League, because he's got to be careful with a guy like that. And so I firmly believe that he's going to go out and try to get a goaltender next.
You and I had an interesting exchange on the goaltending issue a while back. You had mentioned Henrik Lundqvist in the mix.
No.
Tell us go through that thought process a little bit.
My thought process was to throw it out there to create a reaction. I did not say that I would want Henrik Lundqvist.
At the classic pot stir, just classic.
I did. I wasn't that day. So, no, I obviously he's 38 years old. He's a big salary, and I just threw something out. Well, what if the Rangers took $6 million of it? Would you take it and put Kähkönen in as a backup and gradually get him to be a number one? And I wanted to spark a response. I did, because I got destroyed. But that's fine. But the guy I want, if you want me to go on record, the guy I want is Markstrom. Not even close, in my opinion.
Oh, okay.
Because I guarantee you Thatcher Demko is going to be number one in Vancouver. The way he played, they're not going to be able to keep both of them. There's no way. Same thing in Vegas. Fleury's going to be gone, right? There's no way, because they're going to re-sign Leonard. There's going to be goalies available. And
Matt Murray, too, right, in Pittsburgh? I mean, how realistic is that one?
They'll trade him, right? They will trade him. But if you're going the free agent route, boy, as soon as possible, I would jump on Markstrom. That's me.
And then who do you, between Alex Stalock and Devan Dubnyk, Devan obviously finishes out this year. I mean, who do you look to move, or what does that look like in your mind then? Do you go with Stalock because he earned that starting spot towards the end, or do you try Dubnyk again? What's the route that you look there?
Well, here's my thinking, all right? I think that what they're going to try to do is include Devan in a package. It wouldn't shock me if he went in a package with a Parise or a Dumba or a Greenway or a
spicy
Cunnin,
take, Pat. Wow, I choked on my coffee.
You're gonna get the Beauts fans fired up over here. Geez.
Whoa.
Here's the deal, right? I think Devan's contract is pretty friendly. Yeah. I think it's at 4.5 or
4.5, yeah,
4.5,
like that, right? He's got 1 year left on it. Mm-hmm. A team may need a backup and a guy who, listen, I've got nothing against Devan. In fact, if it wasn't for Devan, this team, this organization probably wouldn't have had some of the success that they've had. I mean, think about it when they got him. Mm-hmm. I mean, this team would have finished last, right? And all of a sudden, he didn't give up any goals, and they were giving up 1.5, under 2 a game, and really sparked him back. So, and he's had a great career. He had a tough year last year with family and all that, and maybe he'd rebound. But you know what? Does Bill Guerin want to take that chance? Yeah. That is going to happen, and so, but that would be my prediction. If they can do something like that, include them in a package deal to either get that centerman or another goaltender. I still love my deal of Calgary. I think Calgary is going to make some changes. And, you got Monahan and you got Gaudreau sitting there, right? And they've got 2 or 3 free agent defensemen, right? And so why not a Dumba Dubnyk to Calgary for a Riddick and Gaudreau, huh? That's not bad.
Wow.
Oh, jeez.
Why not? Right?
True.
Or a Monahan and a Riddick or a Talbot, and both of those guys could be stopgaps again until you get Kähkönen ready.
Yeah.
I think you're going to see more movement. I really do.
So, I mean, between some of the big names on the Wild right now that are rumor talk of, getting traded, between like Dumba obviously is the big one. Even there's Zach Parise. They're talking like, are they going to revisit a trade with him potentially? Some of the younger guys like Greenway, Cunnin, Donato. Between those bigger names, which one do you think is maybe most likely to go? And why do you think they might make a move on some of those guys?
I think Greenway is the most intriguing. Because of what he has to offer, right? Speed, skill, size. And I know there's probably another organization out there thinking we can untap that potential.
Oh yeah.
He is, and everyone does, right? Everybody thinks they can make a certain player a different player or whatever. Who knows? How many times have we seen it not work? But I know they weren't happy with the way he played in the playoffs. I think they were thinking we're going to get a heck of a lot more. They put him in a top 6 role on that top line with Fiala and Staal, and that was a proving point for him, and it didn't happen. Why? I don't know, because there is no way with the size, strength, length, skating ability, skill that he should not be. I'm not saying dominant, but a little bit more dominating. And
we've seen him when he's on the top of his game. I mean, he is a formidable guy to play against. I mean, he's strong. He's, a good, he can shoot the puck. He can kind of do it all when he's at the peak of his game. So it's like, once you see that, you just continue to wonder, it's like, where is that? Why don't you get that every game then?
Well, exactly. And you're not going to be great every game. You're
right.
not, right? But you can't be great every 10 games.
Yeah.
It doesn't cut it. And especially in this league, which is so hard anyway. So I think he's a chip that they have that they could probably get something. There's guys that they can't. And I've mentioned before, guys, and another player that we kind of clomp on. We love him. He's solid. He's a great kid. But Eriksson Ek, right? And I asked Dean Evison this, and I probably shouldn't have, because he's not going to talk poorly about a player, okay? Right. And rightly so. But I said, we've seen Ek. We know what he can do defensively. We know he can agitate. We know he's a solid team guy. Is there any upside there on the offensive side? And, he seems to think so, or, at least talked that way. But listen, we've seen him now for 3 years, and he's nothing more than a 25-point guy. If you want that, okay, but then where are you gonna slot him? He's not a top 6. So you've got Nico Sturm sitting there, right? Are they going to be your 3 and 4? If they are, okay, that's fine.
And Nico Sturm was one of the best players in the playoffs for the Wild this year.
Yeah, right.
Really, and they like him a lot, and I like him a lot. So they've got to determine. There might be a team out there that says, you know what, Ek really fits. He really fits. For
and he's young. I mean, he's a young guy. I don't think we've seen quite the best. There might be a little bit more to him, but yeah, I mean, there's potential for him to still grow and develop a little bit.
Yeah, because he is young, and I don't want to be too hard on him, but if you're looking for upside, point production, then you're not, then I don't believe that is. I hope I'm dead wrong, and I hope he gets 45 points. But
it's a challenge to you. You heard it first. Pat Micheletti wants you to do better.
And he's a type of guy that you really want on your team if you're ready to win a cup, because those guys are really, really important on your 3rd and 4th line in the playoffs.
Yeah.
So, if they determine that, you're going to be slotted in at number 3 or 4 for the rest of your career, and, we know what we're going to get out of him, fine. Okay. But if not, then, he could be a guy that you move also.
Staying up the middle, Nick Bukestad comes home. What do you think about that? I mean, Alexis and I have talked about it. It seems like a pretty fair, even trade. I mean, there's really very little downside as we saw just for how cheap we got him. But how do you think that he'll perform, especially coming home and looking at this as a possible resurgence of his own career?
Well, injuries have killed him, right? Lately. And excuse me, we've all watched Nick play an awful lot of hockey at Minnesota, at Blaine. And, to me, when I first saw him, I'm like Mario Lemieux, 6'5", wow. Can skate, can handle the puck, can shoot it like nobody else can. And it's all there. He had one really good year in mm-hmm. Florida where he had 49 points. Mm-hmm. Again, the consistency, maybe a little bit more grit to his game, and sometimes it takes for a guy like that a little bit longer to really understand that you can dominate. And it's almost like, the light switch went off, once you do something good. So if he gets off to a good start, then I think he could be a real pleasant surprise. And I like it. I like the fact that he's not going to be counted on to get 25 to 30 goals. Yeah, right. He's going to be slotted on the third or fourth line, and that's an upgrade. Really upgrade in my opinion. So I'm cheering for him that he's healthy and can come back and help this team.
Do you think, I know that, we kind of talked about potential trades for the Wild here, but I want to circle back to this for a second. Do you think that Matt Dumba being on this team next year is a non-existent thing? I mean, do you think it's inevitable that he goes somewhere? Because he was already, he was a rumor talk at trade talk at the trade deadline. Now Brodin gets signed, and then it just ramps up completely where it's like, well, now it's like that's got to be the next move, right? And then Eric Staal gets traded, and then it's like, okay, what is the next move? So do you think that it is inevitable that he gets traded, or do you think there's a chance they find a way to keep him on this team?
That's a really hard question, because if you're going to get a top six forward, you'd really have to be creative to not include Matt Dumba in the deal, because teams just don't give up those type of players. I don't think they have to do something right away, but if you're looking at it, I mean, who's the most marketable guy to trade there? That so I would probably think and listen, he's going to garner the most interest of it. No doubt about it, because you know what? I mean, he was on a Norris Trophy type career or year before he got hurt.
Yeah.
He would have scored 30 goals that year, right? Right. I mean, he was at 12, and we were in December when he got hurt?
Yeah, 13, in fact, even.
And it was like 13. The beginning of December, I want to say, too.
Yeah, it was early.
And you guys have been here since he came in, right? And the maturity level is off the charts from when he first came into work. So he is coming into his own. And so I would not give him up unless I got something that was, I mean, nothing's a sure thing, but something that's established and
very tangible. Yeah. Like a fair trade. I mean, I think that's what I loved most. And we asked Bill about that. What does this Brodin extension mean for Matt Dumba? And Bill was very honest, as he has been with us. He said, I haven't talked to Matt yet, but we love Matt. We like him here. I'm not in a rush to move him. I will play with him all year until I find the right deal. So, I mean, I think that's even more telling that, yes, he is taking all calls. I mean, and he's been saying from the get-go, he will answer every phone call about every single one of these players at this point, because he knows that there's interest. And, I think he's looking to make this team better. And as much as, again, going back to what you had said earlier, Pat, about we love to love these guys, but you can't have it both ways. There needs to be that change, and that might mean you lose a Matt Dumba. It might mean you lose a Zach Parise. It might mean you're losing these guys that you have found a heart for, but it's you want a better hockey team? Like, I'd like a Stanley Cup. I don't really care if their names are on it or not.
All right. What would you two do?
I mean, I think for me, the thing with Matt Dumba is, like you said, obviously of the guys on this team right now who could potentially get moved, he's the one that's going to garner the most attention. I think that if he doesn't get moved in the offseason, I think the way that he plays at the beginning of this next season is really going to dictate potentially what could happen, because he struggled last year, coming off of that injury, and he wasn't the same Matt Dumba that we saw him get to.
He was very hesitant. Yeah.
And so I think that if he starts the season off, hot, and he, is putting pucks in the back of the net, and he kind of looks more like himself, I think that it's a sure thing he goes somewhere. I think that if he kind of looks like he did last year, which, not to say he had a bad season, but he definitely was not at the potential that he had reached a season before his injury. So I think that that's really going to dictate kind of what teams are willing to make a trade for him. So I don't know if it doesn't happen in the off season. I think there's going to be a slimmer pick of teams once the season starts, unless he comes off firing on all cylinders. That's kind of what I think about it.
I think you can't have 27 million locked up in 4 defensemen ultimately, right? I just think that's not giving you a lot, right? I mean, I like Matt Dumba again as a player, and we can say that up and down this roster. I like every single one of these players as a person. They are wonderful people.
Without a doubt, yep.
But yeah, I mean, you have to do what's best for the team. And like both of you have said, he's going to garner a lot. I know Vancouver, I was filled with all these Vancouver people like, oh, we'll take Matt Dumba. We'll do this. We'll do that. They'll give us Tyler Myers for him, whatever. And it's just so funny. I know. I don't want him either. But you want Markstrom. Package him in with Markstrom, right?
Yeah.
Well, he's a free agent. We don't need.
Oh, that's right. There you go.
How about Hughes? No, okay.
How about Quinn Hughes? 1-for-1. That's a hockey trade right there.
All right. You're on the spot, ladies. Who's our goaltender to start the season?
I hate this question.
Again,
this one's hardest for me because I've developed such like a really good relationship with both of these guys, right? And I adore them both. So I always feel like I'm stabbing them in the heart when I say it.
All right. All right.
I know.
You're co-GMs.
I say you give it back to Stalock and see how that shakes out. I mean, I wanted to see Devin get a chance in the playoffs and see if he could kind of reemerge as the starter. And I think it was the right move in letting Stalock own that net. I mean, ultimately it's hard to say without seeing camp too, right? Like, I think that's going to be, you don't think so?
No, I want to know.
Oh,
yeah. Go ahead, Alexis.
All right. Okay. Mine is kind of a cop-out, but I will say I don't think it's going to be Devin Dubnyk. I don't think he's going to be the starting goaltender for the Minnesota Wild. I think Bill Guerin made it very clear that something needs to change, and I am very confident that something is going to be Devin Dubnyk either playing a different role than we've seen him play or not.
I don't think he's on this team. Yeah.
Who is starting goalie?
Alex Stalock.
My gosh.
Lock it in. Alex Stalock.
I'm going to say Stalock too, because I don't think it's going to be Kakkonen. So I'll say Stalock. And everyone who says that Stalock is a true backup and not fit to be a starting goaltender, yada, 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 I don't believe that. I think that he is capable. I would love to see him get that opportunity because I think that there is some potential there. So I'm going to say
I like
Stalock
Pat's
too.
directness. Like, no, girls, don't tiptoe around it. Like, all right, Alex Stalock. Yeah.
All right, so you guys got Stalock, okay? All right, I'm going to write that down.
He's going to tweet at us.
Game 1, we're going to do another one of these, and yeah.
I love it. Who's your starting goalie? You didn't answer your question.
Oh, yeah. I think it's going to be someone that is currently not on the team.
Okay.
Bold. Write it down. Put them in. Lock them away. I like it.
We'll start a Twitter fire when the season starts.
I want Markstrom.
Yeah. Before we let you go, we're going to ask this question again. Who's your cup finals, or who's your cup winner, rather? Tampa Bay or Dallas?
Tampa. Yeah, I think Tampa.
No hesitation, huh?
No. They're goaltending, and I mean they are loaded. They're not playing with Point and Stamkos both out. I mean, are you kidding me? And that's where. And I'm glad you brought that up, because if you look at what a Stanley Cup team is, they can lose players and not miss it. Look what happened to Minnesota when Ryan Suter gets hurt, and in 5 they were a completely different team, right? And you just you have the depth that a team like Tampa has, and it it shows. So I picked them in 5. I'll
You
give
like Dallas? What? Wow.
Oh,
Consider it.
No, he said 4. Write that down.
I love it. I'm on the Tampa train too. I had Vegas winning it all, and I don't like Dallas, and I'm very still confused as to how they made it here.
That's what I'm saying. I am confused. It's just confusion.
Look, I tweeted in the first round, I tweeted, it looks like Dallas has no interest.
I mean,
find the tweet. Fred, can you find the tweet?
Yeah.
Oh.
That's all right.
I heard myself.
We've all been there, Pat. It's okay.
I don't think Dallas. Hey, listen, they're feeling good. I love Heiskanen and Klingberg and Lindell Box, plays a ton of minutes. Hudobin's been great.
Yeah.
Amy Benn looks really into it.
Finally, though, like you said, he seemed very uninterested toward the beginning. Him and Sagan,
right?
I mean, where were they? Like,
so I hope it's a great series. I mean, we'll see.
I like it. Well, perfect, Pat. Thank you again so much for joining us. Congratulations to.
I miss seeing you guys.
I know.
Yeah, we miss you too, Pat.
Soon.
All right. Well, take care. Thank you.
Thanks. Have a good one,
Pat.
Bye.
Thanks again to Pat. I mean, we could make like a 3-hour-long episode with Pat, I believe, and all of his hot takes. Like, I love how he comes in like just fire with them, and then he forces us to be like aggressive with ours.
I know.
We need more Pats in our life.
Pat, I'm so indecisive. I wasn't ready to think this hard at 10 o'clock in the morning on a Friday. Yeah, Pat's the best. We should just we need to just cycle him in every few weeks. I love hearing his takes. I love, he always has such great insight. Always fun to have him on the show.
Right. We'll have to get something going with him and Micheletti because obviously they've got their own podcast, doing a great job there. So again, thank you, Pat, for joining us. Thanks, Micheletti, for loaning him to us. We'll get some super podcast in the works here. We kind of covered the Staal trade and the Brodin extension, 7 years, $42 million. But Alexis, which one do you want to tackle first on your own? I mean, we got Pat's thoughts. What are your further thoughts on either of those moves? And again, on Dumba trade rumors becoming more of a real possibility?
Yeah, I mean, we kind of covered the Beauts stuff on the last podcast, correct? So if anyone wants to hear our thoughts on that, go check out that one. But then, I
said nothing about Beauts, but okay. No.
Oh, you did?
No.
Scratch that.
I mean, keep this in. Keep this in. This is the things that we're working through. It's Friday morning.
I heard a list of names. I was like, Bukestad's probably on there.
Okay. Johansson, maybe.
Scratch
I don't know.
Bukestad. Forget that. The point still stands that we covered it on the last podcast.
Right. It was so funny because somebody called me out on that. I made a TikTok. Again, shout out to my TikToks. I'm getting real creative with these guys. But I did like a hockey one where I was like, this is the first of many trades, was the Staal thing. And somebody was like, what about Bukestad? I was like, yeah, I forgot about that one. Like, not to mention because that one was like, it was so quick and it was for a pick,
pretty
which
minor.
I never really considered. Yeah. So I'm with you. I got you. But yeah,
okay.
Whew.
Okay, Fred, just cut all of that out, please and thanks. He's not
Nope,
going to cut
it out.
Keep that in.
So,
Where's your pickle? Where's your pickle?
In the pickle predicts is 0 for 1, Fred. I'm not bringing the pickle back.
We should readdress that. As you can see, Alexis has not actually retired. It was a bit. She's still around. She's still in sports.
Somebody commented, they're like, is she for real? I'm like, no, yeah, I'm actually quitting. Good one.
We gave her a second life here. So you get to redeem yourself kind of from the Bukestad issue now.
Wow,
yeah.
tough week for me.
Let's start with it all. I mean, do you want to see more movement? How much more movement do you think the Wild are gonna have the next couple weeks?
I think we're going to see a little bit more. I think we're kind of in the middle of it, if you ask me. And that makes me happy. I like that Bill Guerin is doing stuff. And we talked about it with Pat about how, Bill Guerin is saying, we need to make changes. And that just leads me to believe that he's not done. There's still, we know he's getting calls on certain players. We know that there's a lot of rumors around certain players and certain trades and a lot of teams who want some of our players. So obviously the goalie situation is still up in the air. That's probably going to be changing. So we can probably guarantee something there is going to happen. The Matt Dumba situation, obviously, there's going to be continued talk with that. And then there's a handful of forwards, I think, who are not necessarily on the chopping block, but there's rumors that, hey, we could maybe do something with these players. So I think that, I would like to see the goalie situation get resolved first. I think for me, after seeing what he's done, that is priority number one. And honestly, I think for me, that was priority number one at the beginning of the offseason too. And I'm sure he's been taking calls and trying to figure something out with that. but it just nothing has happened yet. And then like I said with Pat, I just think with the whole Matt Dumba situation, if something doesn't happen in the off season here, something will happen during the regular season. And it's going to be, depending on how Matt starts the season, that is how, we're going to see certain teams either reach out or back off from a potential trade with him, because we know that he reached a really high ceiling a couple seasons ago before his injury. Hasn't quite been the same then, but we know he has that potential, and teams are definitely going to want a guy like him on their team.
Well, and just to point this out, like, you have the expansion draft next summer. And so they're not going to protect 4 defensemen.
Nope.
So you're protecting Spurs, you're protecting Sue, you're protecting Brodin now.
Yeah.
So at least get something.
You have no move clauses from Spurge and Suter too, so you're stuck with them anyway, regardless. So again,
because if you don't make a move before that expansion draft, you basically just wasted an opportunity to potentially get a piece you really need, and now you have to expose them anyway. And I guarantee you, if Matt Dumba is exposed, he's going to be taken by the Seattle Kraken.
Again, Matt Dumba's contract's up in 2023, so you still have him for a little bit. I mean, you have the year again. Bill Guerin, I had mentioned this when we chatted with Pat, like, he had said he's in no rush to move him. He's not just going to move him for the sake of moving him. Again, he knows that there's a high value placed on Matt Dumba right now. You've got guys that want defensemen. Again, Dumba's another young guy who has a ceiling that he has yet to reach, I think. I mean, we're going to see it that year before he went to injury. So I agree. I think there's going to be a lot more movement. I'm curious. I'm excited about it. I know. Again, I recognize so many Wild fans just are hating this, right? But you can't have it both ways, you guys. You gotta, if you want to be legitimate cup contenders, there needs to be a turnover. And I don't want to say rebuild, because I know that word terrifies everybody, but it's kind of a rebuild, and there's going to be growing pains. You're going to have to get used to. I mean, how do you think I feel? I have to learn new team names. I have to meet new guys. Like, that sucks for me too. My autocorrect it still spells Niederreiter every time I type anything.
Matt Dumba's a nice, easy name to spell. Don't take that away from us.
I know, exactly.
We got Kaprizov coming in. That's going to be enough of a problem on Twitter.
Right. But I think, again, Bill Guerin is a proven winner, proven cup champ. He knows what it takes. And, he's been very considerate in even all this when he doesn't have to be, right? I think he's been very conscious of talking to the guys, and he gave them all a chance to show him what he has and what he can work with. I mean, he didn't rush in and say, hey, I'm going to put the stamp on and make changes. So that's where we're at.
Literally using the word rebuild in Minnesota is like using the word commitment around a man that you want to have a relationship with. They're just terrified of it. It's like, okay, it's not let's just tone it down. It doesn't have to be as scary as you think. Like, a rebuild has levels to it.
Alexis is single, guys, if you guys are curious.
Pain,
you opened it up. Pain. You opened Pandora's box there.
I was just trying to give a good analogy, Jesse. But yeah, so it's, I think when people hear that word, they automatically think we're going to suck for 10 years. That doesn't necessarily mean what that means. Sometimes it's just a matter of moving around the pieces. And like we said, sometimes you have those pieces. You don't have all the time in the world to work with them. You have to make moves while they're still viable, while there's still options for you. And, the Wild, there's certain pieces that they absolutely need, and they have pieces now to trade off to get those pieces, and they need to make those things happen.
Breaking news.
What?
Minnesota Wild just tweeted that they will not re-sign Mikko Koivu for that.
Oh my God.
Oh, Mikko didn't do it himself. So it's, in relation to that.
I thought you were going to say Matt Dumba got traded. Scrap the whole episode.
Mikko
we're done.
Koivu gone.
We've been asking Bill Guerin about Mikko every chance we had, and I had tweeted this out earlier that there was actually when Bill listed off his roster of centers, Mikko Koivu's name was omitted, which is very telling. Again, not that it's surprising. I do give respect to Bill. He said, I won't comment on this because I think he wanted Mikko to make that decision, to make that announcement in his own time. Mikko's obviously not on Twitter or on the social media realm, but I wish he was.
That would be a good time.
I do hope that we get the opportunity to chat with him at some point and thank him, because he's number 9, whether you liked him toward the end of the career or whether you agreed with the way he played or, whatnot. He's done a lot for this organization. He's been with them his entire career. So good on him. Very congratulations. I'm assuming this means a retirement. It didn't necessarily say that. It just means that he's not re-signing with the Wild. So keep tuned to our social media channels. We'll keep abreast to that as well. We're going to take a quick break because we've got Matt Hendricks joining us, the Blaine and Husky legend, now with Minnesota Wild himself. So stay tuned. We'll be right back.
Do you want to continue to support the Beauts? Well, make sure you check out our official Bardown Beauties Teespring store. It's stocked full of mugs, fanny packs, baby Beauts merch, and everything else you can imagine. Every purchase goes to support the pod and the Beauts, and we make sure to toss sales out there from time to time. I know one just ended, but there's going to be plenty more in the future to support you and your wallet, so make sure you go check that out and get yourself some merch.
We're back. Joining us now, proud Blaine Bengal and St. Cloud Husky, one of Locker Room's favorite players and twin dad, Mr. Matt Hendricks. Matt, how you doing?
I'm doing great, guys. Thank you for having me on.
Heck yeah, thank you for joining us. You had mentioned the kids are in school. You get a little bit of silence now.
Yeah, nice walk with the dog this morning and my wife Kim, and now you come home to a quiet house. It's enjoyable.
Now you've got a boy and a girl. Are they hockey players at all?
My son Gunnar is a hockey player. My daughter, she is a dancer and a soccer player.
Nice.
So we've got a big Saturday planned. Gunnar's also playing football this fall, so we've got fall football game Saturday afternoon, and then followed up with dance and a soccer game for my daughter Lennon. So
fun. Who's
big Saturdays around here.
Who's crazier, hockey parents or dance parents? Because I hear dance parents could give hockey parents a run for their money.
I would have to agree with you. I'm going to stay in the. I'm gonna wave my Switzerland flag over here and play neutral.
No, that's completely fair. Let's start back with your career. You're an icon here in Minnesota. I don't know if you know that. I would consider you an icon.
I don't know. Well, I appreciate that. I don't see it that way. But.
Yeah, I think so. Definitely a role model, and everything that embodies Minnesota hockey is community based. You stayed and played in the Blaine organization. What was it like winning that state championship and just being a proud Blaine Bengal? Describe that for you.
Wow. That's a good question. So growing up in Minnesota, my best friend, Scotty Romfo, had two older brothers that, kind of went through Blaine High School. The oldest brother, Jeff Romfo, was kind of my idol. He was captain of the Blaine Bengals, got drafted by the North Stars, went on to play college hockey in Duluth. And, I just love following in his footsteps. So as a kid, you're playing knee hockey all the time in the basement and watching the state tournament, just dreaming of getting the chance to play there. So to win it was incredible. And I think the most unique thing about hockey and high school hockey in Minnesota is that you're growing up playing with your best friends. You're playing on a team with the kids you started skating with, played mite hockey with, started travel hockey with, all the outdoor, street hockey games and the games on the outdoor rinks in the wintertime. That's who you win the championship with. That's who you get to compete with. And it just makes the memories that much sweeter.
Well, and then after high school, you become a St. Cloud State Husky, which I was also a St. Cloud State Husky. So we have that in common.
All right.
And as anybody who is a Husky or watch the Huskies know, it's a big hockey school. So you go on to play at St. Cloud State. Talk about that experience a little bit.
And do you remember the fight song? Did you guys have a fight song? Can you still recite that?
I don't even know if I can recite it. I've been out of college for like a year.
Yeah.
You guys got to work on that. Come on now.
Yeah, I know it was the Go Huskies woo all the time.
Go Huskies woo,
yeah. Yeah. I can remember that, and I remember the dog pound at the
dog
rink,
pound, yeah.
I have great memories of St. Cloud. A lot of fun, competitive teams, really good teams. My regret is never winning anything in terms of national championships, but I loved my time there. Just unfortunate we didn't get to win. I still have a lot of great friends and from him, and we talk about a lot of past stories from those times, and it's always a lot of fun and very interesting when we get together.
Any stories you can share with us? I mean, come on, you got to have something that's podcast PG appropriate, right? I mean
or it can, we actually don't need to censor anything.
PG-13,
yeah. A lot of it's, mostly poking fun at me and funny stories. When I was a freshman, I kind of, half-heartedly moved out of the dorms and moved in to an apartment and just slept on my teammates' couches for, the better part of a few months just to get out of the dorm life. But yeah, it's, they're all good stories, but I choose to keep them quiet.
That's fair. Is it kind of cool to see how far St. Cloud as a program has come. I mean, really, it's not that, they were ever down and out, but it's that program's really grown and it's really established themselves as a top program and top Division I school here in Minnesota, when usually it used to be, the Gophers kind of always reigning king. And that's definitely changed as the college hockey dynamic and landscape has shifted as well. Is that pretty exciting for you to see as a former Husky?
It is. It's the university first and foremost, through the athletic department and the coaching staff have worked tedious hours to put together the teams that have been up there in the past, and the community's really come together and helped to raise funds. And I don't know if you guys have been up there and seen the new additions to the arena and such.
Gorgeous.
But it's beautiful,
yeah.
Incredible, and the weight room and the locker rooms and everything that they've done to make it to kind of compete with the other Division I programs that have a lot deeper pockets than St. Cloud.
So you're saying that that's not what it looked like when you were there? Exactly.
No,
a little bit more down and out.
Well,
because it's beautiful. It's a world-class facility now.
Right. When I was there, it was a big concrete building, and I used to just look at it as character, though. Nobody liked coming in there because they knew it was going to be a tough night. So I loved playing there.
Well, and what about, out of high school, you were drafted by the Nashville Predators. Obviously, that moment in your hockey career where you finally get drafted to the big leagues. What was that like? And I know no one's ever going to say they didn't like the team they were drafted to, but talk about the Predators specifically, right, and just kind of that overall moment.
Well, kind of going back to the story I was talking about with the Romfel family, my goal was to get a scholarship to go play Division I college. And, those were my aspirations as a young kid. Dreaming of the NHL and being drafted never really crossed my mind, maybe until the last year of high school when I started hearing it could be a possibility. But it was a great feeling, when you look at your parents and you give them a big hug and say thanks. It's incredible, all the sacrifices that they make, for hockey parents to know the financial and the time that raising hockey players takes. And it was a gift as much as it was to me. It was a gift to them as well.
You mentioned this, and I find a lot of Minnesota players and a lot of Minnesota NHL players say this. They want to go Division I. That seems to be such a unique thing here in Minnesota where, kids want to go play college hockey. First it's they want to go play in the state tournament, and then they want to go Division I. Like NHL really isn't always on a lot of radars right away. Why do you think that is? And I mean, again, how special does that make Minnesota and hockey here, where we love it at every single level from grassroots on up?
Right. Well, there are so many great college hockey teams in the state. I think for me, probably is the North Stars leaving. I was 10, 11 years old, and they head down to Dallas, and every Friday, Saturday night, you're looking forward to watching the Gophers. And that you sit down and you get the mini sticks and the nets out, and you start playing knee hockey, watching the Gophers. So, college hockey is a special place, and it kind of is the next step from high school hockey. You look at all the Minnesota players that go on and stay in state to play and compete collegiately. It's just the next step for us local kids.
I want to win a national championship, to quote one of my favorite parts of Miracle, right? Like that's what you want. I think that's the best. You mentioned then the North Stars, your role now with the Minnesota Wild in player development. Yeah. You get to see a North Stars legend, I imagine, once in a while in Mike Madonna. How kind of cool and surreal is that to have him here and have him back in Minnesota too, and in such a significant role?
Well, first and foremost, just an outstanding human being. I don't get to spend a lot of time with him, but anytime you see that smile on his face, it just brings you back to all the glory days when he was playing for the Stars. But, it's outstanding to be able to, talk to him and ask him questions. And, I always give him a jab. My first game I got to play against him, I won a face-off. He pretends like he remembers, but I don't think he does.
That's so kind of him to be like, "Yep, sure you did. That's right. What sounds about right,
He's
Matt.
Taken
Good
about
job."
5,000 face-offs. I'd taken 5 at that point. But.
Still a peak of your career? Like, do you have some sort of like little memory of shrine? Like, oh, that's the one time.
Right. Well, my family was at the game. It was in Denver, and my sister had a bunch of pictures that she took from the stands of him and I in the face-off circle, and
That's
You know,
awesome.
she's 3 years younger than me, but had a big crush on him. I'm sure like a lot of girls did back then in Minnesota.
Well, I feel like face-offs are such an underrated like opportunity for chirps in the NHL. Like anytime you watch like chirp videos or anything, the best ones are like at the face-off dot where everyone's chirping each other over who's going to win the face-off. So I don't know. To me, I think that would stand out too because that's prime time to chirp your opponent for sure.
Though I feel like
Absolutely.
you and Moto are two nice of guys. I couldn't imagine what a chirp would be from either of you. Like I don't know. Like, hey, sweet hair or something. You know, like I don't know that you could say anything that mean, right?
Yeah, no, that I would agree with you. Both I have some chirps, but you know they're copywritten and you got to pay for them now. I don't want to give them out for free.
You know, I mean, I guess since we're talking face-offs, we could address Mikko Koivu, the Minnesota Wild, announcing today that they will not re-sign the longtime captain, longtime franchise face, number 9. What you got to play with him for a brief stint here in Minnesota, and obviously you played against him throughout your career. I mean, what are some of your memories of Mikko, and what can you tell us about his character as on the ice and off?
Well, personally, I would say our relationship probably started about 10 years ago. We'd be skating in summer hockey here in Minnesota and getting to know him that way. But I think the biggest thing for me was just watching him practice. I remember just one example. I remember during the lockout in 2012-13, we were all skating at the Mariucci Arena, and we had been doing it for a month or so. And I think Mikko was actually down in Anaheim. And when he came back, the first day he came back, if you could see the graph of the work ethic and how hard guys started working the day that he stepped on the ice with the group, it just showed me what kind of a leader he was and what he meant to that team. Obviously, competing against him it's no easy feat. I know when I went to Winnipeg that they were going to they wanted me to play center, which I hadn't played a lot of. So I had a lot of clips cut of Mikko just to see how, because he's not a defensive centerman in the sense. He's got tons of points, plays on the power play, but if you're ever to look at the way a defensive centerman plays, it's Mikko Koivu. He's always on the right side of the puck. He always has his eyes on his line mates and positions himself to help his line mates. So, he taught me a lot in terms of how to play hockey just by watching him. And then talk about what he's done in the state of Minnesota. He's had a tremendous career. These types of players don't come along often, and I'm just really, really fortunate to call him my friend.
I mean, and he's a guy that stayed in Minnesota his entire career. Again, we're not sure what the future looks like for him, if this means retirement or if it means that he'll explore free agency and sign with another team. But let's say that he is done and he decides that he's no longer going to play in the National Hockey League. Just how special. I mean, you're a guy that, played on a few different teams. I mean, how unique and how tremendous of an achievement is that to start your career somewhere and end it in the same place?
Well, especially in today's game, the way the NHL is now, it's so much more difficult. But it's an astronomical accomplishment to be able to spend the amount of time with one team in a market like Minnesota and be the captain and be the leader. And, he's put his stamp on this franchise, and it's an incredible thing. And you're not going to see it very often moving forward.
Are we going to see number 9 in the rafters probably sooner rather than later, possibly?
Gosh. That question's definitely outside my pay grade. I don't make those decisions.
We were talking about this with Pat, but it's so hard sometimes working in this career or, being a fan, whatever it may be, because you get so attached to certain players, especially, for people who work with the team. It's like we see these guys off the ice. We see them in the locker room. We see them, wherever it may be. And you just feel a certain sense of attachment to them. And then you get asked these kind of questions. It's like, I don't know. He's a great guy. Sure. Hang his jersey in the rafters. Why not?
Right. I would agree with that. And Mikko is the icon of true professionalism too. Yeah. So I could see a lot of people in the state of hockey having hard feelings about Mikko and not coming back.
Right. And he's a funny guy too. I always like to remind people, like I've chatted with him enough, and he even says, he's like, well, I think I'm funny. I'm like, all right, do you think you're funny? Like Bruno has said that before too. Like, right. He has some jokes. He can be kind of funny. He's not all serious all the time.
Yeah, as long as you get him on the right day, for sure. He's got a great sense of humor, and he has a lot of fun.
My favorite Mikko story
especially in the locker room. He let him and Staal, they really get after each other.
Oh, yeah.
That's one of the hardest. Missing that stuff during your retirement was probably some of the hardest part about not playing.
Oh,
well,
sure.
and Mikko on his 1000th game when he scored the shootout winner in that game, I remember the media scrum at his locker after that was insane. There's like 30 people there. And to this day, I think that might be the only time I ever saw him like genuinely smile. I was like, look at how happy he looks. Like he was just so happy to answer everybody's questions. Like he was smiling. And I was like, wow, look at Mikko just living his best life. But he always gets like taken as a serious person, but he really does have like this funny, like down to earth personality. And it's like you said, though, it's like you have to catch him at the right time on the right day.
Yeah.
Otherwise it's just straight face.
And sometimes you got to pry it out of him too. You know, it's in there somewhere. You just got to dig, it's kind of like an onion. You got to go through the layers to get to it.
I've always done that because there will be times when he's like, well, Jesse, why are you asking that today? I'm like, because I'm not going to be here tomorrow and I need to get my story done for the day before. He's like, that's an honest answer, Jesse. I'll give you the answer. Then I was like, thank you. Like, I don't want to come in tomorrow. It's Thanksgiving Day. So, you mentioned missing that locker room atmosphere. And I know having seen you in the locker room and talked to other guys that have played with you, you have that persona of just this locker room guy that everybody loves. I remember even Paul Maurice when Winnipeg had you. They were so excited to have you back. Why is that so important to bring that to a team? And how important is that to a success of a team? I mean, the locker room culture is everything. And if you have a guy like yourself or like an Alex Stalock or a Marcus Foligno, I think on this team is one that really gels the team together. How important of a role can that be?
I think it's important. Obviously, I played it. I think I learned from Adam Foote in Colorado the importance of kind of bridging the gap in terms of age. Mm-hmm. You got to have certain individuals in a room that can be parts of all the groups. So you've got your younger guys and your older guys. You need someone that can combine everybody and figure out how to make it all work and make sure the young guys that their voice is heard and that they understand the importance, because it only is going to help their play on the ice. So I think it's important, and I truly valued it.
You said you learned it from Adam Foote, but do you think part of it was just your personality in general, right? I mean, you seem just like,
I think so. I get along well with just about everybody.
Yeah.
But I did when I was 27, 28 years old, and Adam Foote would talk to me about that, and I made sure that I focused on it, and I worked at it and tried to figure out ways, and then started to become natural after that.
Well, I think, the last question I have, and probably the one I'm most excited to hear the answer to is, you, like Jesse said, you've played at a handful of different cities in the NHL, but one of those was, playing in Minnesota. And what was that like for you to come back, play in Minnesota, play with those guys? Was it kind of a dream come true for you?
Oh, definitely. My parents got to see me live a lot more often. My family my kids were in school here. So that was great. The year before I was in Winnipeg all season and they were in Minnesota going to kindergarten. So to be home and spend all those nights in my house, it was, that was incredible. But no, the friends and family were important. Sometimes it got a little bit too chaotic, but that's to be, that's understandable too. So, but I did enjoy it. I loved it.
How many ticket requests were you getting on like a nightly basis at that point in time?
Not too. That was more my wife Kim's. She
that was her job.
That. It drove me crazy.
And you get to obviously now make a career with the Minnesota Wild in a totally different office setting. Tell us a little bit more about your role in kind of the day-to-day, especially I'm sure it's very different right now given circumstances of COVID and how the season's shaken out. But what is kind of your routine with the Wild and what are you doing there?
Well, so I get to work under Brad Bombardier. He's the director of player development. And, he's been an awesome mentor for me the last, what are we at, about 13, 14 months now. But working with our young guys, our prospects, for people that don't understand, it's the guys that we've drafted that are either playing collegiately, playing junior hockey up in Canada, playing over in Europe, and obviously a lot of guys in Des Moines. With our American League team. So traveling around, seeing them, building relationships with them, and just helping them, try and reach their potential and give them anything, any ideas, any tips, and that we can come up with that'll help them be better hockey players.
Is it crazy? I mean, how much the game has changed from when you were playing to now, right? I mean, is there anything that you've had to relearn or adjust, knowing that the game is quicker and just played so different from your playing days?
Well, the rules have changed things, obviously, but I think the youth movement, players are expected to be a lot better players at a lot younger age.
Sure.
You know, and it's incredible how far the game has come since, you know, even I let's say got out of college, you know, with the clutching and grabbing and the slowing down, and now it's just speed. The game's opened up, and these young players have really left their mark on the game, and it's incredible to see, and I'm truly happy where the game is going.
Do you ever have to remind players as they're developing, you know, whether they're in college or whatnot, that they need to stay the course and not rush development? I mean, I think, you know, speaking even down to the grassroots level, you see kids that think they have to be AAA right now, and that's not how you grew up playing. I know that's not how I grew up playing sports, right? But it does seem to be this rush and this pressure to achieve so quickly, but that leads to so many detrimental things, whether it's injury or burnout. Do you have to have any of those conversations with players to say, like, hey, stay the course?
Well, yeah, I use the word process.
Okay.
Yeah, it is a process, and everyone's process is different. You know, for me, I had aspirations and dreams of playing in the NHL once I got out of school, and you know, it took me till I was 28 years old to be a full-time guy. That was my process. Everyone's is individual and different, but stay the course, like you said. Stay the course and believe in yourself, because you're the number one person in terms of hockey and how far you want to go in your career. So believe in yourself.
There you go. To all you parents out there wondering if your kids should play on 3 different hockey teams this year, no, absolutely not. It would be better for them to just play one. Well, Matt, thank you so much again for joining us. We'll have to have you back on once the season kicks up here. Hopefully see you at the rink soon enough.
You got it, ladies. Thank you. I loved it.
Thanks so much. Appreciate you. We're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back.
Don't miss a beat with the Beauts. Make sure you're subscribing to Bardown Beauties podcast on YouTube, Apple, Spotify, wherever you listen to podcasts. Once subscribed, help us grow by rating and telling us what you think about Bardown Beauties. We love bringing you fresh eps each and every week and need your help to reach new listeners and new heights. Appreciate your love and support. You're a Beaut.
We're back. Thanks again to Matt Hendricks for joining us to chat a little hockey, a little life, a little state of hockey love. We love our Minnesota guys, so yeah, that's always a nice component to mix it in. And Matt's a great guy. Definitely easy to understand why he was so beloved in the locker room, in addition to having NHL skill too, right? Doesn't hurt.
Right. That helps. Yeah.
All of that combined. So thanks again to him. Thanks again to Pat Micheletti for joining us to break down a whole lot. This is going to be a nice lengthy episode, a juicy, meaty. Who said we didn't have things to talk in the offseason?
Yeah. Right? Sorry, not sorry, Fred. Have fun editing that one. It's the Matt and Pat episode.
It's going to be a good one. Or it was a good one. It is a good one.
Yeah.
Yeah. And now to wrap it all up, as we usually do, Alexis takes a dive into her youth hockey journals and recaps a little bit of a Minnesota Wild game in her Dear Diary for Alexis.
Wild versus Blues, September 24th, 2009. It was the third period and the Wild still had not scored yet. All I wanted was just to see one goal. They eventually answered my cry, but not quite yet. We were waiting for the Wild to score, and Sonia, in brackets, my sister, was like, we want a goal. And I was like, we want it out of our zone. And a bunch of people in front of us were like, yeah. And this other guy was like, yeah, you tell him. I was laughing so hard.
And happy birthday to Sonia as well as we're recording this, today. Right? Ironic. Was that even planned?
I didn't even plan that. No. Oh my God.
This is how in tune I am. I've been in this business for a while, right?
Nailed it.
Nailed it. And okay.
That's
it.
That was the end
usual.
of it. Yeah. I was that person, like when I was a kid who was yelling at games all the time. Like I was bullying the away fans. I was, that was just what I did.
You want to hear it? So my mom's like a diehard, and actually she's a diehard Mikko person. Like I had Mikko every year say happy birthday to her. Like I think Mikko thinks my mom is like a young child, because I'd be like, hey Mikko, can you say happy birthday to Kim again? And he was like, hi Kim, it's Mikko Koivu, happy birthday. And it was like, she's like, I feel so embarrassed. I'm like, but you love it too. Anyway, she used to wear headphones. They had season tickets and she would wear headphones because she could not stand. She's like, these people don't even know hockey. Like she just couldn't stand so much of like the criticism. And mostly when people would criticize her man, she was like, you don't say that about him. You don't say that about Mikko, whatever.
I was literally like the 9-year-old who would, when everyone's yelling like shoot on the power play, I'm like, let him cycle. Like I'm just like the child who like is trying to get everyone to calm down.
I'm trying to remember. Like I think I was a pretty basic cheer, but now I don't know how to cheer. Like I went to a Boston Bruins game, and having been in like the press box for so long, or been in like an unbiased position, I was like, like I don't know how to do like the fan thing anymore.
I react with my eyes now because that's what I have to do in the press box. So like if my eyes go wide, I'm like, interesting play. If I roll my eyes, I'm like, oh, I don't like that. But it's
still in the press box, I'll still be like, oh, that was nice or whatever. Like I can kind of like that was
even
pretty
at
good.
home. Like when I'm watching games now, I'm like, how do I react? Like, are we excited? I don't know.
P.S. I love that we just made this ending even longer for Fred to edit. So this is great. This is probably my favorite episode thus far because it's episode 40. I know. What else can we cover? I'm sure there's plenty.
Jesse, what are your Friday night plans?
Oh gosh. I mean,
I'm cutting this. He's like,
after the week I've had, it's going to probably include some drinks, let me tell you, right?
Yes.
Some drinks, maybe a bonfire,
Oh yeah, perfect weather.
You guys
for
can
that.
come over anytime. We're looking at doing live fireside chat. So if you guys are interested
Fred,
in
if you're still listening, you can. Jesse's having a bonfire.
Have a bonfire tonight, guys. But so that's going to be a wrap on episode 40 before Fred kills us and decides he never wants to do this again. Thanks again to presenting sponsor SodaStick.com. Shout out to our partners, Minnesota Hockey Fights Cancer. Again, if you haven't checked them out, doing a lot of good things. We've got our own Chirp
merch.
Cancer line. So be sure to buy some merch. That all goes in the help against fighting cancer. So good stuff there. As well as our Teespring store. Every purchase in Teespring supports the Beauts. We love it.
We got bills to pay. Go help us.
Yeah, exactly. Like, please, I have to pay for my nice pumpkin decorations back here. So help me.
Paper towels. Those ain't cheap.
Those ain't, So now you know how you're just living on your own for the first time. Like, do you know how expensive paper towels are? Like, I do.
So expensive.
So thanks again to everybody. Thank you for listening. Remember to subscribe, rate, share this so we can keep growing. We'll be back next week with another hot guest. Stay tuned and have a good one.